Imagine a world where humanity pursued unity over division. Imagine a world where humanity acknowledged the oneness of everything in the universe. Imagine a world where humanity chose love and light over everything else. It's Not My Credit to Take explores the stories of people from all walks of life who seek to uplift humanity and restore Christ consciousness on this planet. Their unique journeys of tapping into their gifts, talents, and the infinite consciousness are amazing, and their willingness to share them to wake up humanity to their true essence and potential is even more remarkable. Get ready to laugh, to cry, and to be inspired. I'm your host, Dr. Ed Slover, and welcome to the It's Not My Credit to Take podcast. Hello, Birgit. How are you today?
I'm good, Ed. How are you?
I'm great. It's great to see you. Thank you so much for taking time to have this conversation. My guest today is Brigitta Visser. Birgit is a soul empowerment coach, divine channel, and light language healer, delivering messages from the many light beings to aid humanity in the hope that people will awaken to what life is all about. Birgit taps into the timeless wisdom of the ancients, drawing from a wellspring of inner knowledge amassed over a lifetime. Though tested by her own trials, she's chosen to rise above, emerging as a beacon of light. Birgit now channels this hard won wisdom to uplift and inspire others, and her profound insights remind us of the strength we each hold within, even in our most difficult moments. And like the ancients, Birgit has discovered that true power comes not from avoiding our struggles, but by meeting them with courage and poise. Birgit, welcome to the It's Not My Credit to Take podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me today, Ed.
You've had quite a journey in this life. When we met one another, I was struck by how many different things that you've done throughout your life. Can you share with the listeners a little bit more about you and more about that?
Yeah, I stuck my fingers in too many traumatic pies, didn't I? By choice. That's why I always say, Ed, before I was born, I must have been off my rocker thinking, oh, yes, this is the school of life. Earthly school of life. It's got to be a walk in the park for me. And I checked all the boxes. Yeah, I'll go for that experience. Yeah, that would be good. This one, this one, this one, this one. And but then we incarnate onto this plane and it's like we get hit by this Arctic blast as a baby, and it's like boink. It's like you go cold turkey and you forget everything. And you have to find your way in this lifetime. But yeah, just in a nutshell, I mean, yeah, I was abused as a kid by a friend of the family. And in the 1980s, life was very, very different. You didn't really speak about these things. And it only came out when I was like 19. But, because of that, I bottled a lot of things up. And I lost my dad when I was 14 years old. That was back in 1988. I was bullied in high school because I was very skinny and I was 5'11". And I crouched like the Hunchback of Notre Dame because I just didn't want to be seen. I was just scared of the kids and especially, the teenage boys. So I avoided most of them at all cost. And even then, I was kind of like throwing my lunches out, and I would sit at the dinner table and just have my dinner. Um, but I always say this, a very well-known quote by me. I always say, one bit of trauma creates another bit of trauma because you're not healing the trauma. So you carry that with you. And so my mom put me on a course, modeling course, to try and pick up my confidence. And that didn't really work. I mean, the modeling industry is very fickle, it's very superficial, it's only skin, I mean, it's all about the outer, not the inner. It's all about the physical appearance. And yeah, so I was chosen to be a hair model for a hairdresser and chopped off my hair to a pixie cut. And it didn't bode well for me. Didn't bode well for me. I mean, I made like, oh gosh, like 75 guilders at the time in the 1990s when before the euro took over. But um I mean, I had to wait months before my hair grew back. But not only that, I mean, I traveled the world as well. But in New York, I was assaulted by a hairdresser, and that was tough for me as well. And so, yeah, and I carried that with me. And because of that, I also fell into dysfunctional relationships. Then when my stepdad died, I rolled into drugs for like 3 months. And because my mom was leaning on me emotionally, but and I had, well, would you say the wrong kind of friends? No, because it was my responsibility. And I kind of blacked out memory, like a memory blank. And because I took too many E's one night. And then all of a sudden, boom, I just went cold turkey like that. Oh, don't get me wrong. I still went to work. Um, but it just wasn't healthy for me. And that's this, this is like playing Houdini with your emotions because you don't want to confront them. And so my superpower was not eating and working like a maniac, always working. And it's like running away from your emotions. Because that's what so many of us do. So that's why I rolled into dysfunctional relationships as well. Because I myself was dysfunctional. I didn't love myself. Oh God, no, Ed, I hated myself. I hated the very sight of myself. And yeah, so it took me until probably 2009 after my ex, who was a crack addict, something I did not know at the time. And that just, I hit rock bottom. And that was in Holland. And he landed in bed with the Dutch Crips in Holland, and he was held for ransom. And so I helped the police. My mom got me out of Holland in the space of like 2 days. I so I helped the police. They found him. They deported him back to the U.S. And then I got a phone call from the leader of the Crips saying that if he ever found me, he would kill me. And that's kind of what sent me over the edge. And I downed a whole box of ibuprofens. And it's a lame attempt, right? But all that happened was I slept like 12 hours and I woke up the next day and I thought to myself, I cannot go on anymore like this. And that's when I went to see a counselor. Now, just to get back to my ex, he's overcome his demons. Um, but it took me years to figure that out. When it comes to relationships, what do we do? What do we, what do most of us do? We go to the ends of the earth for people. We try and help them. Yeah, but I mean, we can drag a horse to water, but we cannot force it to drink. People need to walk their own journey. Yeah, they need to experience their own life, just like I needed to experience my own life and stop helping others um, till I scorched myself, because that's exactly what happened. I hurt myself and I stumped my own growth as much as I stumped his. And that's what we often do. And we don't realize it. But that's when I went to see a counselor, and all the counselors said to me, well, Brigitte, you're strong enough, you'll be fine. That didn't work for me. And then I was like, what am I going to do? And then I found a Reiki healer. And that was the start of my holistic journey. And she really, really helped me. And I studied many healing modalities after that. It doesn't mean that my life was a bed of roses, because trust me, oh my goodness, my guides were like, oh, Brigida is doing quite well. Oh, let's give her the same kind of experience, different wrapping, and see what she does. And what did I do? Oh boy, did I trip once again. Yeah, that's me. But that's why I always say, Ed, I suffered from donkey syndrome. But I can tell you one thing. I can tell you one thing. All the people that have been a part of my life and are still part of my life, I love them. And those in my past, I have forgiven all of them. Because if I did not, yeah, how could I heal? Yeah, you can't heal. If you can't love yourself, how can you heal yourself? And if you can't heal yourself, how can you ever love yourself? And it's so important to return to that love for ourselves. And I mean that in, I know we discussed Christ consciousness, but it's also, it's returning to that unconditional love for yourself and for one another. Accept people the way they are. Yeah, you cannot change them. Honestly, I thought people were refurbishment projects. And I would mold them and try to get them or shape them to my liking. But that's wrong. You don't do that. I really had to learn. It took me many years to figure that out.
As you were describing your relationships, particularly the dysfunctional ones,
Yeah.
I was thinking about the idea of soul contracts
Yes.
and what we carry into this life from past lives that need to be
Yes.
healed. And as part of those soul contracts, the people we're in relationships with help us, or at least give us an opportunity to heal. Am I getting that right? Where in your
Yes.
life, the experiences that you've had and the healing that you've been able to achieve by virtue of those experiences, are you healing trauma from past lives?
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I will delve a little bit deeper into that. So the one that got deported back to the US, I was I had a lifetime with him. 'Cause I had regression therapy done. And I always say it's not for the faint of heart. I mean, this is many, many years ago. It's very, very intense for me. And I lived in was it the Mesopotamian Byzantium Empire? And my ex at that time, I mean, my ex in this lifetime was my blood brother. So we weren't brothers, but we were blood brothers. And we were very close in that lifetime, but the person he was married to was very devious, very two-faced. And I was married and I had a daughter. Wow. I mean, the house was amazing. It was so, I could remember the mosaic in the fountain. And I would always sit in my study by candlelight and I would be writing. And I don't know what I wrote about because everything was lost, of course. But the person that I was married to, we had a love for one another, but it was more an understanding. And what happened to me was that I landed in prison because my blood brother betrayed me and said that I, he put it as everything that I did was blasphemous. It was not in the name of Allah, so to speak, in the name of God. And I landed in prison, and that's where I died. And I had a spear through my neck, and that's how I died. And it's funny because I have three little cat paws there, and that signifies that people that have these what do you call this, these birthmarks, it often signifies that maybe that's why they got shot or they got hit, or that's how um, that could be a possibility. That's how they died. So if you have a birthmark, that could be anything. It's very, very interesting, but it was very, very intense. But I understood the dynamics in this lifetime, and that's what made it easier for me to understand.
It is really interesting. Hoping you can talk a little bit more about past life regression not being for
Yeah.
the faint of heart.
Yes.
What is it about that process that makes it difficult or challenging for people to deal with?
Well, for me, it was challenging because you go so deep and you see everything. Because I could describe clothes I was wearing, and even when prison, I mean, there was nothing left of me. Um, and I also had to work in the mines, and I think it was mining for minerals there. So there was nothing left of me. My family wasn't in touch with me anymore. So I was very much on my own, and had to I had to value that solitude. because otherwise it would have driven me mad. But it was so vivid for me. And it was, I was, unlike the Akashic records, where you're very conscious, this is really going in deep. It's like a it's deeper than hypnotherapy. I can't even explain it. For me, it was just so vivid that when I got out of it, I was, it like had taken everything out of me.
I'd like to share a story, if I may,
Yes.
and get your impression. A few months ago, at the time of this recording, I had a past life regression because in meditation, I kept seeing this vision of McCall, Idaho. McCall is about 2 hours north of Boise, and it's
Yeah.
absolutely God's country. It's just gorgeous. And a couple of summers ago, my in laws celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary, and the family descended on McCall and spent a weekend. And ever since then, I couldn't get it out of my head. I couldn't get McCall out of my head. And as part of this past life regression, I ended up seeing this scene where there was a construction site and there was a superintendent, so the supervisor, that was barking orders at the workers, and there was a black man that was overtly offended by what this supervisor was saying, and the supervisor was yelling the N word.
Oh.
And immediately I'm thinking, am I the supervisor here? I mean, because I've never uttered that word once in my life. And then it
Mhm.
hit me, Birgit. I was the black man.
Yep.
And I was pushing, trying to basically physically assault this supervisor and was jailed. And remember
Yep.
seeing a vision of my wife and child being taken.
Yep.
And the only thing I knew after that was they were killed. And I
Wow.
and I felt shame. And it was really powerful because I was able to feel that shame in order to be able to heal it.
Yep.
And for what it's worth, I haven't thought about McCall since.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, so I'd love to get your take on all of
Yeah.
that because it is challenging to process through those types of
Yeah.
things.
It is, but it's also beautiful because that is an aspect of you that is wanting to be healed, and you healed that. Um, and so I think I think that's brilliant. I think that's wonderful. Um, and people that think they only have just this lifetime. Well, no, we live infinite lives, infinite lives. And when we remember a past life, then just accept that and work through it because obviously your soul is trying to tell you something.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Really is. You mentioned a few moments ago the Akashic records.
Yes.
Can you share with the listeners what the Akashic records are and how we in this incarnation are able to access them?
Oh, I didn't access them myself. I went to a healer when I was going through another traumatic experience out in St. Petersburg in Florida. Another very relationship, but it taught me so much, right? Because we're all reflections of one another. In a way, we're all teachers of one another. And when we look at it from that perspective, things change. But I was so exasperated because this person wouldn't leave me be. And oh gosh, I helped him out again to the ends of the earth. Way to go, Brigida. Well done. Until penny dropped and he was like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I need to work on myself. You ready? But I was screaming at the universe for help. Anyhow, I my guides kicked me out of the house and I needed to go to this fair. That's where I met my former mentor, Alania Starhawk. She's an Akashic Records healer. And Akashic Records hold all your lives, all the lives you have lived within the multiverse. Yeah, not just Earth. but any other planet you may have been on. Because if you think Earth is the only planet in the whole multiverse, oh boy. Let me tell you, there are more species than the hair on your head. So, but yeah, it's really, really fascinating to just walk through your past lives. And with this person in Florida, he's doing very well now. You know, he's overcome his demons as well. But he, in another lifetime in the Middle Ages, he poisoned me over several months. And I didn't know that because I thought he was trying to heal me because I was very well off and I had my own business at the time. And when he left me and took everything that I had, it was already too late for me when people found me. But it's very, very interesting because once that was healed, right, through the Akashic Records healing, the energy changed within me, but it also changed within my ex, and he left me alone. And that was really beautiful. So it's a very powerful form of healing. I mean, I've seen many other lives, and I have sat with myself as well. Um, when I was writing, or when I write and just sit quietly and ask about past lives, they will present themselves. And don't think I've always been a goody two shoes. Oh, heck no. I've been part of the Inquisition out in South America. I don't think I was very friendly because I waterboarded people. I chopped off their hands, and I can't, I just, oh, I mean, it's terrible. But we live these lives, yeah, to learn, just to learn. And I mean, I can't imagine having done that. But there have been other lifetimes where I've lived in the Ming Dynasty and I was a slave. I was a sex slave. And what goes on in low ground, so to speak, is horrific. Is horrific. I always say when you turn the earth inside out, yeah, what do you get? Um, so yeah, but it's really, really helped me um to overcome a lot of things and to understand a lot more about myself. It's been a very, very healing um, to work through many of my past lives.
Is it fair to say that incarnating on Earth is one of the hardest lives that we'll ultimately live?
Yes, correct. Earth, the only planet where you have to pay in order to, in order, in order to, well, once you're born, right, you pay up, or your parents pay up. So it's the only place within the multiverse where you have to pay to make your way.
That's really interesting. It occurs to me that so many of us here at this time are here to help with the ascension of the earth because the earth is graduating, at least maybe
Yes,
vibration and frequency, to the earth's next level.
yes, correct.
How do we know if we're one of those incarnations, a light being or a star seed or
All of
whatever
us
they're
are.
called?
Most of us are. It's
Hmm.
you know, um, so the Earth is like us. When we are a baby, we grow up. Right? We become kids, teens, adolescents, adults, and we get older. Yeah, these are the cycles of life. Earth is also a living, breathing, conscious being. It also has the energy centers, the chakras, just like we have. And so she goes through ascension processes, much like we do. But now it's her time. It's like saying, "Oh, my clothes are too small. I'm getting bigger. I'm ascending." And we have to just go with that process. But when we talk about light and dark, I mean, this war, if you want to call it war, has been going on for eons. It's always been light against dark. But that's the whole beauty of it, because that's called duality. Without night, we wouldn't understand light. Without the sun, there wouldn't be the moon. Without cold, there wouldn't be hot. So the polar opposite, so to speak. And it's brilliant because that's how we understand. That's how we experience life and how we can learn from one another. And as I always say, ascend to Jacob's ladder, understanding more about life. But yeah, we're here to help. We're here to in we're here currently um, to help Mother Earth ascend, but also for us to expand our consciousness and to understand that there needs to be a balance between the masculine, the very action based, the very power based, um, with the feminine, the spiritual aspects. It's not just go, go, go in the logic brain. No, it's also infusing the spiritual. So it's that balance. And many people are suffering right now because their back's against the wall. And it's like, oh, I can't do this change. Oh, but their guides are saying you need to heal, you need to heal. But some people are just wearing blinkers and are just not listening. Um, so,
Yeah.
yeah, it is about transcending consciousness, and it's a beautiful time to be alive. The thing is that I always say, don't listen to the outer chatter, listen to your inner chatter, listen to your inner world, listen to your soul, and listen to your heart, and see what your higher self has to say to you. Yeah, everything lies within. If you want to make the world a better place, it starts with you. It doesn't start with someone outside, it starts with you. And when you change and you inspire others, they will automatically do the same.
And how we're conditioned and the
Oh, yes.
programming we receive throughout, particularly our young lives,
Yep.
runs counter to everything that you just said. And yet people are struggling and they may not necessarily know why. And you had referenced that we need to listen to our guides. One thing that was crystal clear for me that was an absolute struggle, Birgit, was in the fall of 2023. I knew that my job was to rest.
Yeah.
And that was really, really strange. And coming into 2024, it's like my job, air quotes, job is to trust
Yeah.
and allow the universe, God, source to actually care for and nurture me, which, if I am thinking about this right, and I'd love your take, that caring for and nurturing is the divine feminine, is it not?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, and you know what? I will say something. Did I rest last year? No, I kind of burned myself into the ground with work. It was me. It's like, oh my gosh, I have this responsibility. I have to do it. I have to do it. My guides were going, the universe was going, what are you doing, Brigida? You're working like crazy again. What are you doing? And I had to stop because it really hit on my health. And then it was like, "Mhm. You need to chill. You need to take a chill pill now and start doing the things that are important to you." Because I hadn't been to the gym for a long time. And it was like they really hit me, like the very, very beginning of January. So I started jogging again. I go to the gym and I do yoga. And I'm like, I'm not going to do yoga. Brigitte, yes, you're going to do yoga. And I did. And that's how I met my contacts, because now I'm going to start teaching meditation. And, the universe always has a plan. It's just that we need to just stop, breathe, and listen to our bodies and listen to our soul. And if you don't believe in guides, you can believe your gut. Huh? Listen to your body and and understand what it's telling you, because it's so important.
You referenced communicating with your guides. I'm
Yes.
curious, how did you start communicating also with light beings, archangels, ascended masters, as well as your guides?
Yeah. So, well, that didn't go. Gosh, I mean, even when I was a kid, I had I was like six, and I do remember this. I had like a teacher of kind. She had glasses, and she had like this very flower pot hairdo, and I was always on like the silver cord, and I didn't understand, but I was always talking to her. And as I got older, I just forgot. Life takes over. And it was only much later, I think even in my 20s, where I wasn't in a very happy relationship and I was living together, I started meditating, and I was talking to Saint Germain at the time, the Ascended Master Saint Germain. And I remember I was somewhere in the States. I'd even kind of like drawn it, like the caves that I was in, because it was all amethyst, and it was really, really amazing. And it just went on and on. And I was speaking to him at the time, and it was really for healing. And then I kind of stopped again. And it wasn't until after 2009 when I started to develop myself, that I learned to listen. And more so in 2016, where I commenced channeling. And it's not like, for many people, it's different, because people ask, well, how do you talk to your guides? How does that work? For me, sometimes it's just words that come through, or flashes, or songs, um, or signs on the street. Could be anything. I find a lot of money always, whether it's pennies, or just last time I found uh, 5 euros, right on the sidewalk far from me. And my mom is always like, "How come you always find money?" I'm like, "Well, I guess it's like, well, I need to catch my thoughts." They always tell me, catch your thoughts, what you're thinking at that moment. But so it's honing in and learning to listen, and drowning out the chatter of the outer, so to speak. And we can all listen to our guides, and become more aware. It really isn't hard. By meditating. When we meditate, we become calm and we center ourselves. And I get people say, yeah, but I can't meditate. Uh, no, you can actually. Yeah, but my mind wanders. It's okay, because all you need to do is just come back to the breath. That's why I say to people when they just start out, just listen to David G, to David and then J.I. And he's got a host of guided meditations on YouTube: overcoming your anxiety, your fear, living in the present moment, um, and chakra healing, setting your intentions. And it's really powerful, because you follow it, and you follow the breath. And then it has a mantra, often a Sanskrit mantra that you just need to repeat. And then you finish. And it's an amazing way to start the day and to end the day, because it really gives you clarity. It makes a world of difference. So I dare your listeners to try it. What have you got to lose?
I love that. I love how you ended that. What do you have to lose? Because the older I've gotten, the more I realize when there's no downside to doing something, we should probably do it. Meditation included. We just have to acknowledge that we're just not going to be good at it to start, and we don't like ourselves when we're not good at something. So it's like, well, maybe when you start meditation, you should enroll in a self-esteem class, and that'll help. But I want to go back to your reference to channeling. How is channeling different from synchronicity?
That's a tough one.
Because
So,
how I differentiate it, and I could be way in left field on this. How I differentiate it is channeling for me is I get concrete messages
yes.
versus synchronicities. When they show up, I have to make inferences about what they are or how my guides or the universe is trying to get my attention, where
Yeah.
it's almost making an educated guess versus channeling for me is much more concrete.
Yes, correct. That is correct. Uh, so when I channel, and it just depends who I channel, because some of them are like they're like puzzle pieces. Um, but when I channel, the words just come through and I just write it down, unless they're playing around with me and they make me work for it, and then I have to look at a reference and what does that mean? What does that mean? But then the sentence is done and I do understand it. Um, but when I started channeling, it was really about healing myself. That was an important aspect for me. And I asked questions. I really did, about how I could improve my life, what I needed to work on. And then I also took my cards uh, and I would just pick a card for any of the ascended masters or the archangels, you name it. And then I would have that card and I would ask them to give me a message and convey something about themselves. And they did. Practice makes perfect. When you go to the gym the first time, are you going to get it right? No, it takes time to build up your strength. When you start to cycle or when you start to roller skate, well, you go flat on your face a few times. It's okay, but practice makes perfect in anything that you do. So never, never give up. If you want to achieve something or you're inspired by something, then go and do just that. Yeah, never give up. I never thought that I was good enough. Never. And I still set the bar very high for myself. But that's me. I like to challenge myself, even in spirituality, of course. I like to challenge myself. But for many, many years, this goes back to my childhood, and I carried that into my adulthood as well, is the fact that never thought I was good enough. I was always a people pleaser. I was always afraid to hurt other people. Yeah, so I withered away within the shadows of who I was. And by overcoming all of my trauma, which took years, um, I realized that it doesn't matter what people think of you. That actually matters what you think about you and how you feel about yourself. I'm not talking about the ego at all here. Um, but I learned to speak my truth in a humble and respectful way. We need to give one another space or hold that space for each other and accept one another as we are rather than, stamping them into the ground. There is no need for that. Nobody's better than the other person. Listen to others, to what they have to say. And if it resonates with you, great. But if not, then just let it go. And that's something that I really had to learn. So I don't have all these labels attached to, in my head anymore: fear, regret, the what ifs, the shame, you name it, the anger, the frustration, because what is the point? Huh? What is the point? You only block the flow within yourself. And that's what you block the flow within yourself, but you also hijack your own meridian highway. And that's where you get kinks in the cable.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You had said it earlier. We're reflections of one another.
Yes,
And I love that. We got one final question for you, Birgit.
yes,
I read in the opening that you want to help humanity in the hope
yes,
that people will awaken to what life is about. You have a
yes,
genuine love and compassion for other people. And yet, when you were young, you were abused. You lost
yes,
your father when you were 14. You ended up in a modeling career and later involved with drugs. You had dysfunctional relationships, culminating with one of your partners being in a gang and a crack addict, and your life was threatened. Most people Birgit, would lose all faith and confidence in humanity, and yet you're doubling down on your love and compassion for humanity.
Yes.
How were you able to arrive at that spot?
Years down the line. Because trust me, as I said, in the beginning, I carried so much bitterness, but I was only beating myself up in the boxing ring. And what is the point of that? Why would you remain in your victimhood? Right? Take responsibility for your life, regardless of what happened, whether it's your fault or not. Stop pointing fingers because the only reflection you're going to see in the mirror is that of yourself. And come to a place of acceptance. So important to accept where you are at in this present moment. Yeah. And take the steps from this point onwards to see how you can heal yourself. It doesn't matter whether you believe in the holistic therapies or whether it's cognitive healing or whether you want to go and see a counselor. You have to do whatever aligns with your spirit. And that is very important, but never remain as you are. And that's the thing what people forget. We are body, mind, and spirit. So if you're suffering from something physical, don't forget your mind, your mental health, and your emotional health, your spirit, because they're all intertwined. So if you're going through a really terrible experience and you're suffering, then reevaluate your life because somebody has obviously triggered you for a reason. And your soul is crying out to be healed. It's often our mind, ego sitting in the driver's seat and it's just saying, shut up, not listening, not listening. Cranks up the volume, keeps driving. And but you really need to listen. You need to feel peachy and at ease in your own skin, because if not, then indeed you will suffer from dis-ease.
That's really good advice. It's really, really good advice because the pain and the struggle is actually an alarm.
Yes,
It's an alarm to jolt us into focusing on what it is that we need to heal versus running the other way from
yeah.
whatever that is. That's awesome. Birgit, this has been wonderful. How can listeners learn more about you and the work you're doing?
Through my website, www.powersoulhealing.com, and on Instagram under Universal Light Warriors. I have a YouTube channel, which is on the Power Soul Healing. I know Facebook, but I don't really use Facebook that much. So I will leave that one out.
All right. Wonderful. Birgit, this has been really engaging. I know I learned a ton. I know listeners will as well. Thank you so much for having this conversation. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, no, thank you so much for having me. And remember, if any of your listeners are suffering out there, make sure to reach out to someone because, as I always say, we love you. Don't think you're not loved because we do love you.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Many blessings, Birgit.
Thank you.
You can contact the show at itsnotmycredittotake.com. We'd love to hear from you. God bless.